Patagonia, land of mythical giants. It's a geographic region that crosses southern Chile and Argentina. The area was first discovered by the explorer Ferdinand Magellan in 1520, and he named it Patagonia. Many theories believed he was probably heavily influenced by a popular fictional book at the time called Prima Leon, and it featured an indigenous race called the Patagonians. Others believed, and we were told this on a tour in Santiago, that the name was derived from the word Patagon to describe the giant footprints made by snowshoes of the original people that lived there. Our journey started from Toronto, and almost 17 hours of flying time, not including layovers, we landed in Puerto Natales, the gateway town to Torres Paine National Park. At the end of the video, we'll have some tips to help you plan your trek, as well as links below to our website with more details on packing, etc. Our route was an 11-day slow trek across the full O circuit. We would actually end the journey as a full Q circuit, which requires an additional 19-kilometer section hike from Paine Grande to the Park Administration Building. A route that is seldom done, and you will have it all to yourself. In total, we hiked 150 kilometers on our circuit. We chose to start at Paine Grande and go counterclockwise. The O section from Seron to Gray must be done in this direction only, and you must stay at each of the campsites. There are also cutoff times to pass certain sections of the hike, so pay attention to that as well. We chose to take the public buses, which were quite inexpensive and efficient. At 6:30 a.m., the bus terminal was hopping with hikers ready to start their treks. The dogs that run this town were also hanging out to bid us buen camino as well.
Pretty organized chaos here at the bus stop.
Most of the trekkers got off at the first stop, Laguna Amarga, where the guards check your park passes. Before the start of the trek, we spent a night in camping Pehoe. We continued on the bus, and at the third stop, we arrived at the campsite to spend the night in our comfy dome tent. The view of the Cordillera is breathtaking as you enjoy lunch by the picnic tables. We followed the trail right by the camp to the short but rewarding Mirador Condor to explore more of the scenery as we contemplated what the next few days will bring. Likely a lot of wind judging from this hike. About a kilometer south of the campground, we found the boardwalk paths around the Hotel Explora. The next morning, we decided to hike up to the Pudeto ferry area, which was a short 7 kilometers away. We were going to check out the waterfall and the Mirador Cuernos near the ferry. A kind driver stopped for us, and we happily jumped in his car as the road was quite dusty with the cars driving by. I'd definitely recommend taking a shuttle, which the campgrounds can arrange. The ferry ride is quite well organized. You pay in US cash or pesos once you're on board. The backpacks get piled up in the center, and once you're moving, you can head up to the top of the boat for an unobstructed view of the mountain range. Day 1 is in the books as we arrived at Paine Grande. The closely packed campground was a bit of an adjustment as we were used to wide private campgrounds coming from Canada. But you get used to it quickly. It's the busiest and biggest campground with lots of open space and facilities. Day 2, we made our way to nearby Camp Francis. We weren't sure if we were going to tackle the Mirador Botanico today or tomorrow, so left that decision till later. The sun was out and it was a lovely day. You come to an intersection shortly after you leave Paine Grande. Go left if you want to save 2 kilometers or go right for a more scenic route. We inadvertently chose the longer scenic route. We stopped for lunch at Camp Italiano, and as we were staying in Cuernos the next day, less than 3 kilometers away, we decided we would do the Mirador Botanico the next morning. At Camp Francis, head downhill towards the refugios and you'll be rewarded with beautiful views of Lago Nordenskjold. Attempting the Mirador the next morning turned out to be the wrong call. Rain changed our plans as the route up to the Mirador was closed due to weather. We met another couple at the campsite and had a lovely breakfast chatting with them. We leisurely made our way to Camping Cuernos, which was a short 2-hour hike away. It's a beautiful walk alongside Lake Nordenskjold. This is one of the nicest campgrounds as it sits in the shadow of the Cuernos peaks. By late afternoon, the sun was back out again. More gazing at the Cuernos right outside our tent. Day 4. Our destination was Chile, Chileno. After a hearty breakfast of oatmeal, we headed out. More rain in the forecast, but our gear was holding up well. Well, maybe not my legs, as they were still getting used to daily hiking.
It's so hard. Out of my way.
The valley is beautiful as you approach Chileno. This was the coldest campsite because of the higher elevation. So this morning we're going up to the Mirador de Torres. It's going to be about 2 hours up and 2 hours back down. I'm so glad we stayed here because it meant we could leave earlier and get to the top of the Mirador Torres without the crowds the next morning. There's a time cutoff at 3 p.m. when you get to the checkpoint, so make sure you have enough time. It took us about an hour to get there, but we took the slow way. It's a steady up climb, but what a view when you get to the laguna. Central was quite underwhelming. It's a lot smaller than I thought it was going to be, but most hikers doing the O will bypass this site. There's not a lot of signage here, but you will pass the hotel on your left and keep going till you see a sign pointing to the camp on the left. The Refugio is to the right. Day 6, this is it, the backside of the hike crossing into the O circuit. We were on our way to Seron. It was very quiet, like we were the only ones here. The groups leaving from Laguna Amarga weren't here yet. There might have been 3 people who passed us for the first half of the trail. There were horses to welcome us as we approached the campground.
So give it just a little time. Share some bread and wine. Weave your heart into mine, my friend.
I love this campground as well. Maybe it was the smell of bread baking in the kitchen that made it feel so welcoming. Wide open spaces to park your tent here. Day 7. A long day ahead of us with 19 kilometers to go. By now your legs are getting tired with all that constant uphill hiking. This was where we truly experienced that famous wind in all its fierceness. At the halfway point, there's a guardhouse to check in and clean pit toilets. The second half of the hike was mostly flat and serene as you wound your way through the low, scrubby foothills. I also fell in love with Camp Dickson as well. I love the vibe, which incidentally each campground really does have its own personality. The horses roam through the campgrounds in the morning, so don't be surprised if you come face to face with one in your tent, as they were curious about us humans too. Day 8 dawned and we made our way to Los Perros. The forest walk in the beginning was a bit buggy, so we motored our way through it. As you get closer to Los Perros and come over a little windy ridge, you are greeted with the most amazing lake and glacier views. The park attendants here were so proud of the fresh glacier water, you have to try the cold showers. They really are refreshing. Day 9, the most highly anticipated section of the hike, as not only is it a long and grueling 10 to 12 hour day, but also you cross one of the highest elevation points in the park, going over the Garner Pass. I prayed for good weather, but instead we were greeted with rain, wind, and hail as we summited the pass. Nevertheless, it was a stunning hike, and walking along Glacier Grey and the Southern Patagonia icefield for long stretches was just out of this world. There were a few sketchy areas that got my adrenaline pumping on the downhill side, but Dave said he wasn't worried about me falling to my death. He did snap his hiking poles though, as did others. At Camp Paso, the halfway point, you check in with the guards. Not to worry folks, there's a clean Western toilet waiting for you. The hard part is over. That is, if you're not afraid of going over long suspension bridges. 3 of them. We survived the pass. Gray is also a popular campground and is the second largest after Paine Grande. There are great facilities here as well.
Blindfolded lovers boldly stare ahead, standing on the edge of what comes next. Golden hearts.
Day 10 already. I love this section, maybe because it didn't have any steep drop-offs and you could gaze at Glacier Grey in the distance. It's a nice wind down to an exhilarating hike from yesterday. As we crossed Laguna Los Patos, I thought this was an appropriate namesake for Dave, and I bestowed the trail name Big Patos to Dave, seeing as I trip over his size 12 shoes all the time. Back at Paine Grande where it all began, and the best tasting pizza to celebrate our finish of the O circuit. Day 11, only 19 kilometers to the finish line and a Q circuit wrap-up. This section is quite flat, so don't let that steep hill up from Paine Grande fool you. You'll also likely have it to yourself. We met one person going in the opposite direction at the end, and in about an hour after we arrived, a fellow hiker met us at the office to wait for the bus to take us back to Puerto Natales. Look back often, as you'll see the Cordillera in your rear view as you say goodbye. A quiet finish to an amazing trek. We did it. Now, a bit on how we planned this hike. There is so much to unpack here. We'll go over some main highlights, but we have lots of detailed posts on our website on how to plan this trip, what to pack, and what to expect on the hike itself. First off, getting here can be a multi-day journey. We had almost 11,000 kilometers and 3 flight segments to travel, so we broke it up and spent a day in Santiago, Chile before continuing south. The trek itself is non-cancelable or changeable 45 days prior to your start date. And since it's the main anchor of your trip, do yourself a favor and book a buffer day or 2 in case of flight delays or lost luggage. The last thing you want is to miss days and to have to catch up on your campsites. In Santiago, we love the free city walking tours that you can pick up at Plaza des Armas. Look for the folks with the green caps. They tell some great stories about the history of the city that you can't get out of a book, and there are lots of free museums to visit. We stayed near the heart of all the key tourist destinations at Hotel Ismael, a lovely modern boutique hotel with a fantastic breakfast, and paid about $100 a night. We also spent a day in Puerto Natales to buy supplies, etc. for our hike. The town is small and you can get just about everything you need for your hike here. I'd highly recommend that you fly here instead of Punta Arenas, which isn't really geared for hikers. We stayed at a private, converted shipping container apartment about 200 meters from the main bus terminal so that we could easily walk to it the next day, saving on some transportation costs. The apartment cost $48 a night, and it was a short 10-minute walk to the center of town. The owner also stored our extra luggage for free for the entire 10 days, as we were also spending another night here when we finished the trek. Our favorite restaurant in town was the affordable Hamburgueseria La Forastera, voted the #1 hamburgers in Puerto Natales by someone I read, and we concur. Planning this trip can be overwhelming at first, but if you want to save a lot of money, book it yourself. Camp and bring your own equipment and food. This is a breakdown of what it cost us in US dollars for 2 people, not including food. Time is your friend. The booking portals for the park opened in late June for the upcoming season in December, so the early bird gets the pick of the campsites. You can check out the blog post for more detailed tips on putting an itinerary together. When to go is another big decision. We didn't want to deal with constant cold weather and snowy conditions, so we chose to go in the summer. You'll still get cold snaps and many snow showers, but they won't last long. Yes, it's busier, but we didn't find it to be so crowded that it took away from the experience at all, even on the W circuit. There's a maximum at each campsite, so that really dictates how many people can be on the trail for the most part. The popular miradors are the exception, but even still, you can get an early start and beat the crowds. Purchasing meals on the trek is very expensive. A full day's meal can run you about $70 US per person. You're also at the mercy of their morning schedule, so it's not going to work if you're an early riser and want to get out on the trails before 7 a.m. We brought freeze-dried meals from home for our dinners and oatmeal with powdered peanut butter for breakfasts. Lunch was a mix of trail bars, nuts, dried fruits, and electrolytes as we needed them. If you prefer to buy some meals, I'd recommend going for the dinners. If you're looking for a quiet but beautiful section of the park, consider staying a night or two in the camping Pehoe area. Sometimes seeing the forest for the trees gives you a different perspective and viewpoint. There are a couple of short but fun hikes that you can do in this area to get your legs warmed up for the big hike. Mirador Condor is only 3 kilometers, but it has stunning views at the top. In terms of gear, pack as light as you can. Test your equipment before you get there to dial it in. Trekking poles were a must for us as it's all up and down. Pack for 3 seasons as well, even if you're traveling in the summer, and invest in the best rain gear that you can buy. So, do you or do you not filter water before drinking? There are lots of opinions. We filtered all the time. Using a system like Be Free, which is super easy, you fill it and screw on the filter, and to me it's worth it for peace of mind. A couple other tricks if you use a mirrorless camera is to use those hotel shower caps as a waterproof cover for your camera. Lastly, say hola or buen dia to your fellow hikers, many of whom you will see over the next few days. We found the conversations to be the most rewarding of all with people from all over the world. If you're hesitating about doing this trip, don't overthink it. Just book it and then prepare as best as you can.
Wow.
See you on the next trail.